Welcome, friends, to the Soul Talk podcast, a show where we explore and uncover the path to the heart, amplifying your conscience. Join me as we meet incredible souls who are in this journey and learn from their experience and different methods that will make you vibrate your heart. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone. This is Monica Ramirez, the Warrior of Love, and thank you for being in Soul Talk. Today, we have a close friend that I had the honor to meet her in person in Houston. And let me tell you a little bit about who's Andrea Mai. Andrea, she is a calm transformation coach. She's also a writing and publishing coach. That it is very, very interesting always to have conversations with her. But let me tell you why I brought her here, and she's going to tell us how she got there. I brought her here because she wrote a book that it is the calm way in 360 days journey out of the weeds into the wild of our true inner freedom. And Andrea, first of all, thank you so much for accepting my invitation for Soul Talk. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you
Thank you for having
here.
me.
Tell us, what did make you actually write this book?
Oh man. So this book was kind of the capstone. It was sort of the grand finale of a lifetime of learning about what it is to set myself free and then bringing that into I've always wanted to write a daily reader book, like a where it's got a small page, a page of some kind of insight, contemplation for each day. Um, and so I knew the title and I knew what it was about, but since I'd always wanted to write that type of book, it felt like a really fun way to approach this material. And so yeah, I wrote it last year, and uh, it really it allowed me to go to a new depth in my work that I hope I hope that when people open it, they're finding something that's not maybe what we've been told brings calm or brings peace, right? It really is about it's beyond letting go. It's about standing in our own power. And so a lot of the themes in the book are about what it's like to have true poise and presence and innocence and wonder, right? And these things. It's not about being this sedated person, this calm because we're oppressing ourselves or suppressing ourselves. It's because we've found our inner power and then we can meet life, right, in a whole new way. So that's
It is beautiful because it is so true what you just said. Many people tend to hide their emotions until they're bottling up until one day it's just going to explode and it's going to create a huge chaos in their life. So finding that peace, inner peace inside of us is essential
yeah,
for our nerve system, our physical body, our
yeah,
mental body, and because it is important to have understand those things inside of us.
yeah. And like where they come from. Why do we respond the way we respond? Whose voice is in our head, in our heart, in our cells, you know? And what is it like when you strip all of that away? It's really rattling for most people. It's very uncomfortable to be in a place where you've slowly or sometimes really rapidly all of the stories you see them and you get to choose then. Like a lot of my work is about helping people become calm and conscious creators of their life. We're always creating, right? Most of what we're creating comes from the things that the unseen things that are driving us and the programs that we accept. So if you want to change the narrative in your life, and really like and when you open up like ooh, you're limitless, that's terrifying. for most people. It's wild for a few minutes, but most people it's like, no, I'd rather just go back to this. It's at least familiar, and I'll just
Yes, because the ego, in a way, do not like changes. The ego like the comfortable zone. Even if the comfortable zone, it is the chaotic zone. So when you actually make that peace inside of you and self-acceptance and self-love, you can
yeah,
get there, right?
yeah, yeah. And like what is it like? Also, a lot of what I address is okay, it's one thing for us to kind of find that in ourselves, right? But then it's constantly reflected back to us. Um, if you start changing how you talk with the people in your life, how you communicate with them, that can create a whole lot of tension and chaos in your world. And it's like, how do you trust and love yourself enough to be okay with not always being loved or not being heard long enough to sort of reset and invite people into also uh, honoring themselves, in this way so that we stop, when we have a conversation. How many of us, one of my favorite exercises has always been this sort of, we called it dyads or dialogue, right? Where you're just sitting and we're not doing our usual things, like nodding our head or shaking our head or, right? We're not being reactive in support of. Um, like there's the socially acceptable ways that we converse with each other and communicate. And so when you start stepping outside of that, that's the biggest one. We can carry a lot of other things, a lot of these other changes kind of in a inner way, but it's like how do we then communicate it, hold our ground, but also not hold our ground from an egoic perspective, right? But from true, light, compassionate, like high C is what I call it, high octave compassion. There's a lot of layers, and I had to walk through all of them. And I thought I had walked through all of them. I've been doing this since I was 12 years old, 40 years of going through these changes. Um, And when I started this book, I mean, obviously with the wild new energies and the all the things happening to us, for us, right? As we transcend and the old ways and step into this new way and create, we're having to see the things that are sometimes so subtle and just like you don't even know that it's there. So last year was really, as I was writing this, it was in the DNA. I mean, it was stripping everything bare and it was really unnerving, which was kind of great because I had been walking in a pretty expansive view for a long time. And to be brought back to such a humble state, basically like losing my cool over things that I never did, right? We all walked into that wall of just whoo, so much more information than we're used to receiving, right? We were getting, a year's worth of sort of information in a day, It's a lot more. It was moving things faster. And so, yeah, it was a pretty potent time to work on a book like
Something that I encounter with my clients that I coach, it is about they have the lack of self-love,
that.
a lot of them. So it is very difficult to give to someone, have patience with everybody when you're not having it for self.
Yeah.
Or you talk to yourself in a horrible way. And that's the majority of the human beings. Like, oh, I'm getting too old and I have more freckles, I have more this, or I have more that, or whatever it is they're talking to themselves.
Yeah.
But you expect others to talk to you in a nice way. So that's a lot of the things that we have to actually observe. How do we talk to ourselves first? so we can have the patience and the love and the compassion for others at the same time outside.
Yeah, because when you can find it for yourself, uh, and warts and all, right? For these, when you can find compassion and tenderness for the things that we've carried around, the heavy bags we've carried around, and the dreams that have gone unfulfilled, and all of these things, when you begin to open yourself to it's I remember this quote many, many, many years ago when I first started really meditating. This was, I don't know, almost 20 years ago. And there was this quote that said, once you begin, you can't turn around, basically. Like once you step onto the path, you can't turn around.
Because that's
Um,
good.
'Cause you can't unremember uh, once you've remembered these little bits. And so that once you see that you've maybe not loved yourself and there's a little part of you finding that one part of you that you really appreciate, whether anybody else sees it or not, like that's a beautiful place to begin. And to find out that also a lot of the things we lash ourselves with and beat ourselves up about, those are somebody else's voices, and it goes back and back and back. Saddest thing I think I've ever seen is when I've only known a few children who it's like they came in with this level of self-loathing right from the start, and just like hiding, just shrinking right as they came into the world. And I've not seen too many kids like that, but when you see that, boy, that to me was, I don't know why I'm bringing that up. I don't actually talk about that very often. So maybe somebody needs to hear that, you know, um, but because there are things that we bring with us into this life that are beyond what we inherit in this life, from the people around us and I guess, anyways, I'm kind of veering off here, but
What I wanted to tell you about, it is important that you're talking about. I remember when I heard that almost the same phrase that you said, you say in there. It's like once that you started the path of inner work, you can never go back because of the responsibility. That's when you realize that you're responsible of every single choice that you have done in your
yeah,
life. So, and when you're responsible of every single choice, you cannot say, "Oh, I did not did that," because
yeah,
now you're doing the inner work and now you're owning your own choices and your own decisions that you have done. Now
yeah,
you have to go into the process of self forgiveness and acceptance of who you are and what you already have done so you can move
yeah.
forward, right?
Well, and a lot, there is, like, there very much is that place. There's also the opportunity to recognize that those things are also just a story we've been telling ourselves, right? You turn off the story on the television, you walk out of the movie theater, and you leave it there. Say that was an interesting thing to observe, that, and we can lay down the story. But we also, like, as humans, we've kind of either we've been taught or we just like our stories, and because we're getting something from it. And the story of not caring for yourself, not loving yourself.
Or I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Story the majority of the human beings they tell to themselves, and they have a story in their head that is playing constantly to remind them that they're not good enough. So, and you're so right. We tell ourselves so many stories that we have in our head, like you're mentioning, and we're not even putting attention to our thoughts or our emotions until it is too much, and we basically break in the moment. because it
Yeah.
is too much that we've been holding, and the stories are continue repeating, and that's part of the games of the ego with us.
Yeah. I think of the ego, I talk about it as the egoic overlay. I think of it as the original artificial intelligence. You know, all this talk about AI, I've not really talked about this, but I think it's a just a program we all know, right? It was there to keep us from being eaten by lions and sticking our hand in the fire, all these things. But, it's I have maybe a different perspective than some folks, but for me, it's a thing we can work with. We can make friends with it. I've participated in programs where we've learned to lay that down, to lay the body down. But before you can lay it down, you kind of have to neutralize it. You have to understand how it served you and
Yeah,
how now it's holding you captive.
yes, I
But
think the same. It's like how to befriend the ego, because it is an amazing tool that will help you grow and expand your conscience and the way you think and so forth, but you use it in the right way. It's like a hammer. A hammer can do harm to others, but also can be very good to building a furniture or putting a painting or whatever it is.
yeah,
It depends how you use it. And the ego can be our best ally to grow and expand, or it can limit us and leave us where we are stuck. So
yeah,
it depends how
yeah.
we use that tool in a way.
Yeah, I have somebody in my life who I was talking to recently. She said that she'd kind of been staying at home. It was winter. She wasn't really going out. She hadn't left her house in almost 2 weeks, right? Because it's northern, it's a lot of snow. But she realized that she was becoming, you know, somebody who'd always been wild and carefree, and wasn't going out at night because she didn't want to drive at night. And like all of these little things, she noticed she was putting these really limiting things in place that were actually keeping her from doing the things she wanted to do, including seeing her kids, her grown kid. And so how beautiful, right? You see it, the ego's like, yeah, we're gonna stay so safe and cozy here in the house, right? If you let yourself acknowledge that the world out there isn't actually that scary, you know, um,
But at
and
the
you
same,
take one action, one step toward, go get in the car, warm it up, right? Go drive around town. These,
or sometimes I believe that when we're growing and we're going into that dark night of the soul, that to
yeah,
explain to our viewers that probably you already know, and if not, dark night of the soul is when you're going into the inner changes in yourself and you're realizing what things you're responsible and you're learning to forgive yourself and so forth. So it is kind of chaotic inside of you. That's what many of us will go into the hermit time.
yeah,
And in that hermit time, it is important to understand where we are. So like that, we can move faster from there and we
yeah,
can go out again to the world and present ourselves to the world. But you're going to be different the next time that you present yourself to the world,
yeah,
because you did that inner work in the hermit time or
yeah,
dark night of the soul.
yeah. Well, and I retreat often, right? Like I'm all in, right? When I'm in, I'm in. When I'm it's right now it's an extremely dynamic season for me. Lots of activity. But you can bet that there's a point that's coming when I need rest. I need to like nourish myself. And so I'm not stepping out of the world. I have stepped out of the world because I was worn out and um resisting the world, right? Resisting it versus just resting. There's so yeah, the dark night of the soul, though, it's, you know,
And everybody's going to pass through that in one moment or several times in their lives. It's not something that is going to happen only once. Because I feel like every time that we're going to the next stage in our lives or the next stage in our life, there is a new energy, new emotions, new things that is like, oh, I did not knew I have that resentment. I did not knew that I have PTSD. I did not knew I have this. I did not knew, like, oh, now I have to work it out. And
Yeah.
that's where I wanted to ask you, because you are also you work with people in the writing part,
Hmm.
so they can publish their book and things like that. And in there is a lot. People do not understand that there is a lot of healing for self, like you were mentioning at the beginning with your book, when
Yeah.
you start writing your
Yeah.
story outside yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's amazing how many people I've worked with and just walked with over the years that they thought it was going to be quick and easy, right? We're just going to get this thing done. And you can, absolutely, you can, but there's an opportunity in it to really like take your time, meet yourself in it, uh, explore those questions that, and those stories, the stories we carry around. Where was the thing that I never thought I could say, right? Sometimes you don't have to, it doesn't have to work its way into your book, but it's like you're going through the process of writing it. Can you take time to write it for yourself? And then, like, it's basically like this purifying process. You're taking it through you. You're taking this, whether it's a joyful story or a painful story, like something, or a boring story, you're taking it, you're just going into it, and it's like you let it settle. And then out of that comes wisdom. Out of that comes embodiment. And that's what makes our work stronger as artists, as creatives.
¿Sientes en este momento una transformación profunda que viene en interior, que vienen cambiando cosas porque el mundo está cambiando? Pero a su vez sigues repitiendo los mismos patrones, te sigues irritando por las mismas cosas, sigues teniendo los mismos miedos y las mismas limitaciones. Es hora de cambiar, es hora de que puedas moverte a lo que tú realmente quieres tener. Te invito a un desafío que yo creé, que es el desafío de transformación interna, que te va a ayudar en estos 3 días, que es del 7 al 9 de febrero a las 7 de la noche y es completamente gratis. Te invito en estos 3 días a que el primer día vas a liberar todos los bloqueos, vas a aprender a observar tus mismas limitaciones o los patrones de comportamiento que tienes. En el día 2 va a haber una sanación profunda en el cual va a haber patrones ancestrales que vas a poder observarlos porque los sigues repitiendo tú. Vamos a hacer meditaciones para poder cambiar la energía inclusive que viene en esto. En el tercer día vamos a tener diferentes activaciones, adquirir tu poder personal y vas a tener un propósito para cómo moverte adelante. Lo que incluye, va a ser las sesiones en vivo, en Zoom. Vas a tener un libro de trabajo para que empieces a trabajar contigo mismo desde ahorita. Va a haber meditaciones a nivel teta, utilizando técnicas de NLP y utilizando otro tipo de técnicas que son para liberarte precisamente de todas estas emociones y limitaciones que tenemos. Va a haber grabaciones también. A las primeras 20 personas que se registren van a tener una meditación exclusiva para que de esta manera empezar tu trabajo interior de liberarte de lo que ya no quieres tener. Mi nombre es Mónica Ramírez. Soy la guerrera del amor. Te espero el del 7 al 9 de febrero a las 7 de la noche en este desafío y es completamente gratis. You know, something that I'm always grateful, it is about the boring. Because when you get bored of your own stories,
Yes.
that's when the shift comes. Like, oh, okay, I need to do things different because I cannot stand myself anymore with these thoughts or these emotions or this
Yeah.
drama, whatever it is you're passing through.
Yeah.
But thanks to the boring, because that's what it makes you change. Because it's like, I cannot continue like this. And
Yeah.
you're feeling miserable, you're feeling ashamed for, or whatever emotion that it is bringing you down, thanks to the boring.
You know, yeah, sick of yourself or tired of yourself or
Sorry
my
that you
gosh, is this all there is, right? Is this all I am? You know, yeah, it's magnificent actually. I've been journaling pretty much, I would say 6 days out of 7 for 40 years. I'm 52, right? I started when I was 12. And uh, man, I mean, you'll have months of just utter boredom, uh, bored with yourself, and it's a powerful tool to notice those loops and those repetitive habits and patterns, and the glory of it is then you can take all of that stuff. One of my favorite things to do when I know that I've been in that place that you're talking about, it's time for a bonfire, right? It's time to take out the 20% of pages that are actually worth salvaging and go and take the rest of it and burn it on the fire and let it go, right? And it's so exhilarating. And people might think you're crazy, to burn your whole. I'm like, no, go ahead, read one of these journals for 3 months. You'll find there was 4 pages of, you know, uh,
Yes, because sometimes we're just putting ourselves, we're observing the drama that we're writing, and
yeah,
it can be very dramatic. I have done it. I have seen poems and things like that that were like, oh my God, what I was thinking 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It's like, oh my God, this is too dramatic. I would not even consider this is useful material for anyone to read,
yeah,
because it is just going to take them in their own drama, with the drama that I had.
yeah,
So that material is like, I want to get rid of it. Burning it, it is the perfect way to do it, because you don't want to expand the misery that you were
mhm,
in 15, 20 years ago to anyone else. So
yeah,
the fire is a perfect match for that.
yeah. And it's a great way to see. It's a great tool. You talked about like forgiving yourself, right? Like forgiving yourself or just accepting that you were doing the best you could at the time, and we can now move on, but we don't have to carry the weight of that around inside of us or in our notebooks or um, in our cells, you know.
And those stories and things like that we're telling ourselves, it brings us a lot of anxiety
Mhm.
for the things that we are afraid of the future, or depression that we're thinking in the past, for the things that we don't did in the past.
Yeah.
But you have dominated in a way and teach people how to get out of their anxiety. How do you
Hmm.
work with that, in that anxiety, in the writing with your?
Well, so I mean, back to like to anxiety, unwinding anxiety. I don't know if you can see this. It was my first book, had a different cover on it, but like anxiety, whether it's as an artist, as a creative, as a human being, you know, it's these are just stories that we're telling ourselves. Um, get into the learn a lot since writing that book. That was 8 or 9 years ago. But whether it's about the work you do in the world, whether it's about, your how you feel about yourself, so much anxiety, you talk about it being in the like when you're focused on the future, but also within the body. So for me, I was able to break completely like eradicate anxiety from my life. Uh, because I was able to disconnect the sort of the physical response, this physical, what the body was doing from the loops, and I started working with my body, getting familiar. I had almost 3 years, this knot in my chest that I could never get my breath below sort of my upper chest. I couldn't even get it down to my rib cage, it was like to the bottom of my ribs. And I just breathed. Well, if you know anything about the body, right? Like the things that that's doing with your nervous system and the chemicals in your body, you're just constantly triggering this
Like,
fight or flight isn't even begin. It's such a high adrenal sort of experience. And you're always thinking you're about to have a heart attack. But anyways, point being, once I learned to disconnect by focusing on the body. Okay, this is a body. Well, I've had massages and that worked out kinks, right? Can I learn how to breathe into this place that hurts in my body, this knot in my chest? Can I actually focus on that? And then I was able to, and I had been meditating for years. Like I had a lot of tools. I had a lot of knowledge. Having knowledge and information isn't the same as a lived experience. um, they're like bits of information, but until you begin to um, really apply it, right? Don't learn 10,000 things. Just learn one thing you're going to actually start taking action on, and it'll lead you to the next thing.
something that I realized that I do it, and I've been observing many people were doing it. And when we have too many things to do, that's when it gives anxiety and overwhelming and so forth. And it would take you out of the center, and you're not going to realize not even the 10% of the 100 things that you have to do. But when you start one thing at a time, just one thing at a time, that's what you need so you can start moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's something that I realized that I was doing it to myself. And it's like, okay, like I signed up to 5 classes, different classes, and it was like, okay, why I did this to myself? Okay, let's not more. I prevent myself to no more until I finish the 5 classes because I love learning and I love to expand my knowledge and so forth. So it's like, okay, I understand I respect myself in that area because that keep me alive, the curiosity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I don't want to overwhelm myself. So now it's like, okay, finish one thing at a time. And then when you finish that, you can move on to the second one. And then when you're done, you can move to the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
But people tend to do that. We think that we can, there is this thing, the more value people for the society norms is the one that can do multitask. But they are really multitasking. I used to believe that I used to very be good at multitasking
Yeah.
until I started analyzing that it's like, can a human being really multitask and be fully conscious in the all the activities that they're doing?
Right.
They don't.
No, you're just like fractured attention, really fast fractured attention, Um, and yeah, I worked in an industry for years. I mean, so do many, many people, if not almost all people, right? It's just like, vroom, answer the phone, send the email, uh, analyze the data, It's one thing I love about writing, or music or art of any kind, right? It slows you down for people who say they can't meditate, they don't want to meditate. Same thing with physical activity. If you let yourself be present when you're going for a walk, or maybe you're working with weights or doing some yoga, and can you just be present with that? It almost is it's a actually a really good invitation, because if you're not present, if you're not singularly focused, you're probably going to hurt yourself. You might trip when you're walking. You might step into a hole, or into traffic,
And the
you
worst
know.
part is that you're not going to enjoy anything because
Yeah,
you're not present in anything. So
yeah,
even washing dishes, that is a tedious work that no one wants to do it usually. if you are present, okay, I'm gonna finish these dishes. I'm gonna be fully present washing the dishes. That is a type of meditation when you're fully
Yeah.
present in the here and now, doing
Yeah.
even tedious work like washing dishes. That
Hmm.
is a way of meditation.
Yeah. It's that finding ways to bring sort of your presence, your awareness into whatever you're doing, right? So I'll be, maybe I'll even be a little graphic here, right? Even when you're on the toilet, you know, right? Are you looking at magazines, scrolling your phone, or are you just, it's also a lovely opportunity to just have a peaceful moment with yourself.
That's
You
true.
know, you know, just breathe, do your stuff, you know. We're always, yes, we live in a world that is very, very distracting, but also we have the choice to stop distracting ourselves. And it's hard. There's never probably been more distraction available to us in every waking and often sleeping moment, you know. Do you go to bed with the TV on? Do you look at your phone right until the time you go to sleep? Do you pick it up the first time as soon as you get out of bed? But beyond that, there's other, we talk a lot about the digital distraction. And, there's so much information. If you're not aware of how these things impact you, you're not paying any attention. But other distractions, do you let somebody finish their sentence? I mean, yeah, we all tend to interrupt and cut each other off at times, but do you let people finish what they're saying? Uh, do you, I love to go for walks and I love to leave my phone at home. I used to use it as my listen to podcast time. Now, almost always, I'd rather take a 20-minute walk and just like feel my body moving. What a gift. We have these bodies, whether they feel great or not. We have these bodies available to us right now, and we're missing out on all of it. You know, it's great when you are doing something that pushes it. I my mantra is kind of like, so what? So what if it hurts to walk up that hill? You're doing it, like you're breathing, you're meeting yourself in that moment. And that to me is, so what if you don't think you're a good writer? Or somebody told you you don't know how to paint, or somebody says you wash dishes wrong, right? Like all of those are excuses. They're excuses that we use to take us away from the greatest gift, which is showing up for it, sinking your hands into the I love dishwashing. I don't do it all the time. Like, I love to wash dishes in the sink a few times a week with my hands in the water and look out my window. And right there, when I do that, it's like, I'm, it's such a tedious, like everyday sort of thing. And it's like an opportunity to just let the rest of the world kind of soften that pace and that obsession with the rest of our life drop away.
I know that you're going to be starting a new course, automatic writing and intuitive, with automatic and intuitive writing.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. So, for the last few years, I've been doing in my journaling, right? All of a sudden, I started writing in this different voice. I'm a very early riser, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You don't have to do that. That's just when I get up. But it was quiet, it was peaceful. I've been doing this a long time. Wasn't necessarily in a meditation practice, but my heart was soft and warm, and I had my cup of tea, and suddenly this we voice starts coming in, and I realized, I'm like, have I started calling myself we? What is this? So I started talking to this we voice, asking it questions. And what's happened is a lot of just many, many layers of awareness, um, and confusion about what it was, if it was safe, if I was okay, well, if is this channeling? I don't know. Is this channeling? Who am I talking to? Right? All of these questions would come up. And it was never anything but a voice of love. And it is parts of myself. And, I went through many layers of calling it different things. And now the need to label it has kind of dropped away. I just say it's my higher and multidimensional aspects. And so anyways, recently I've started communicating with sort of the consciousness of my grandmother a little bit. I've done this also with my personal dragon, different things. It's a beautiful tool to go to a whole other level of yourself. And it brought up for me some very subconscious and unconscious things that I didn't have access to otherwise. So,
That is so true because, well, for the people that do not know what is automatic writing is a way of channeling. It's basically getting out of your head and just letting it flow. You can ask questions, like Andrea was saying, and you're going to receive answers. It's a back and forth communication that you're having. And this is one of the ways of channeling automatic writing.
yeah, yeah. And then intuitive writing um, is maybe a little different. Same but different. It might apply more just a regular journaling session of coming in and like knowing, you have that knowing, right? Or that intuition, or you're thinking about someone, and maybe you get a little bit of information about them or for them. But as a creative person, as a writer, I imagine in your artwork, right, that you have these things where it's there. My two poetry collections very, very much dropped into my field, and I just walked my way into them. And then um, it's they're in my experiences they're a little bit different. Uh, and so right now I'm actually trying to maybe create a better explanation of that. But uh, the program is going to be called Intuitive Writing Magic. So the funny part, this is the beauty of intuition, right? A year ago, I had actually I had started to create this program, didn't remember that I had created this. A year almost to the day, it was like within 1 or 2 days of the same time I put up a landing page for it last year. Uh, I was guided back to it, right? My intuition guided me back to this very same subject. Let's create this program, having forgotten that I'd already laid the foundation for it a year ago. Our our intuition when we're looking at things, uh, I like to think of it as almost like the more practical aspects of our daily life. Do I go to this meeting or do I stay at home, right? Um, Maybe you don't need all the aspects, or they're coming through, but it's coming through as you, versus more like a channeled. Um, uh,
So basically,
anyways, I'm still working out how to define these two things.
basically, tell me if I understand it well. So basically, you're connecting to your own self, your own intuition for
Yeah.
that. And channeling, it is an outside energy that is coming to you. That is the difference between both of them, right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it depends on your awareness of how connected you are to all that is, right? So a lot of times we think that these voices are outside of us or beyond us, but they are part of us. You know, they are the consciousness to which we are connected, or, you know, we're a sliver of the greater consciousness playing through as Andrea, playing through as Monica, you know. But yes, so intuitive writing, it can really be more sort of your day in and day out. The automatic writing for me has been probably more what you would call channeled writing, where messages are coming in about um, what is happening in the world, about things beyond my normal uh, scope, right? Questions bigger than my normal, I guess.
And when is gonna be you're gonna be having this in this class?
So it is going to be coming up. I've actually shifted it to March, so it's going to be an online offering. I'm also gearing up to do it locally in Nashville. And so, yeah, forgive me my inability to clearly define it, but it is an experience that I know how to bring people into and through.
So it's gonna be in March, guys.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give the information down this that this podcast of Andrea. So you wanna contact her, you wanna book a call with her, and I know she works with also with authors for editing and publishing their book and keep the ball running with them, or they have projects. I know that because she's working in my book, and so I highly recommend you, Andrea, too, in that area. And besides that, she is an amazing, amazing human being that is really, really worth actually meeting her and actually get to know her. And she will help you to calm your that busyness that we all have in our minds so you can find your true self, right?
Thank- Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That's very nice to hear. It's one thing when we say we do these things, it's nice to hear when somebody else is having that experience. So, um, but yes. And I just want to say how wonderful it's been to get to know you and see all the many ways that you're bringing your heart into helping people through your beautiful art, through your beautiful communications on social media, the way you're working with, you know, you have a devotion to your clients. I can feel that. I can see that. And so, yeah, what a thrill.
Just following your mission. When you're following your mission, like you are, or many people are doing, it is not a job. It is actually an excitement to be alive and be at service to others. It is, it makes you happy to see people happy.
Yeah.
And when you're living your mission, it can be writing a book, it can be coaching, it can be working. Something that I do know about teaching, every time that you teach something, you learn a lot from the teaching. So I love to teach because I learn from me.
Yeah. Yeah, there's literally no better way to act. Like it when you're a real student, right? Some of us are really students. The best way is to step into a role of teaching and facilitating and like holding that space because you're gonna there again, you're gonna just meet so much of yourself and find out um, where you doubt yourself and where you can, you know how like I wasn't teaching writing, but I teach people about getting comfortable and finding their voice. And last night, right, stepping up on a stage in a room, it was like 10 people. Everybody, it was like all these comics and a poet, right? You know. And my work was had nothing to do with what everybody else was doing, but that was a teaching moment for me. I'm telling other people to go out and do this. Live your brave self out go on to the stage of your life. And I did it, and it was fantastic. You know, that's where we get to. We don't always start there, but
That is so true. I have I have participated in many poetry readings, and something that I always encounter one or two that goes to poetry readings that is the first time sharing their poetry.
yeah,
Because when you're an artist and you're creating a poem or a painting or music or dancing, whatever it is,
yeah,
you are it is a vulnerable part of yourself, putting it outside and sharing it with other people. It can be a book, it can be whatever it is, but it is being vulnerable. But that's the only way also that we start aligning what our true mission it is.
yeah. And it's so energizing.
Mhm.
It's so energizing and life-giving. I talk about the wobbles, right? When if life is giving you the wobbles it's wonderful. Uh, you know, you can be fully confident and your knees can still wobble a little, right? You get a little sweaty, you know, your body's having a reaction, but that doesn't mean that you can't be lit up and aligned in your heart and your spirit and meet that moment with really like beautiful poise, even if your voice is shaking, you know? Um,
And
yeah.
that's part of being human.
Yeah. Doing that, I don't know. You- try it. Try it sometime.
So
Yeah.
I really thank you, Andrea, for being here. Do you have some last words that you would like to give to our audience?
Yeah, I would really like to encourage you as you're listening to this to find one thing that makes you uncomfortable and step into it. Just that one thing, just take a step towards yourself. Uh, and so much magic is going to unfold for you with that one step. And it's going to it's going to lead you to the next step and the next step. But you don't have to worry about any of it. Just one thing. Try it out. Um,
That is so true. That is so true. Getting out of your comfortable zone
yeah.
and having a next adventure. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you for all of you for listening to us and seeing us. I really appreciate you. And hey, if this video helped you, um, please leave us a like and a comment. We will appreciate that, or a review in our podcast. And share it with your friends. Maybe someone else, one of your friends might be looking for this information. And why not share it with them? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. And I look forward to doing it again sometime. And when your books are ready, hope you'll come on Writers of Light, my podcast that's gearing up, and we'll share a little bit about your light.
Thank you
Beautiful.
so much.
Mm.